back to another episode of the Works Plus TechTalk Podcast. Today we are joined by our very first international guest. And if you've been in the scene for a number of years, or even if you've been possibly for a number of days, you'll probably be familiar with the name Josh Jones of Substrate Technologies Inc., known most commonly as STI, and most famously associated with the name Prep Master, I think. Josh has been in the industry for as long as I can remember. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Let's start with going back in history. Give us a bit of an idea of, who's Josh Jones and who's STI? Can I call it STI? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's pretty much how everybody, for brevity, just refers to it as STI. It's easier. Okay, so the way it all started for me, as far as getting into the industry, in 1991, my dad started the company as a contracting firm that was called Surface Dimensions. That was in 1991. It was over the course of the next 4 to 5 years that the processes that were used in the Chicagoland market were something that he saw that could be sold to other customers or contractors similar to ours, similar to our company. So the different systems that he came up with, wherever the different industries that produce them provided them from, those different processes, he then turned that into Substrate Technology Incorporated and started selling through Blast Track. And that went on for about 7 or 8 years, from 1995 till about 2002. So our experience, and my experience definitely from the beginning, was as a contractor. My job before this one, my last job in 1991, was making pizzas, which I hope one day to get back to. I enjoyed making pizzas. But being a family business, I had my driver's license, and it was pretty much an automatic that I was going to do this work. And it's good money. I'm sure it's still good money to be in the trades, but that's how the company started. We started as contractors, basically pioneering might not be exactly the right word, but learning how to repair old floors in a way different than the conventional removal, underlayment, replace. The grinding, even though it was in its infancy, the grinding was starting to become popular to clean the concrete floors. And that was pretty much the beginning.
Okay. And you guys have your own slew of machinery today. What was your dad using when the business got off the ground?
At first, it was just mono-rotation buffing machines with different bits on it, sandpaper, carbide scrapeaways. And at some point, and he would know, I guess, when he had the light bulb moment, but at some point he found out about these Terrazzo machines from Turco. That was at the time in Minneapolis. We had a relationship with Terrazzo and Marble out of Chicago. They were a distributor for Turco. Ordered a machine. I remember we were doing floors for a local supermarket chain, and he had ordered this machine in, and it's what's now today called the 701S was our first machine. And it was originally made for doing Terrazzo work, because, Terrazzo and that industry was pretty mature even at that point. So that was how we got into doing rotary grinding machines to do concrete treatments. This is before polished concrete was a thing, or before even the diamond tools were available. But that was how it started. We basically graduated from buffing machines and hand grinders into 800 and 900 pound grinders.
It's such a big jump, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a big jump in both physically and mentally, going from having that really small business that relied and somehow was making money off of off a swing machine, and then all of a sudden the heavy artillery turns up. It's just a complete mind shift. Very exciting times.
And you don't know. I guess age and time makes it a little more interesting, or I guess the nostalgia starts to kick looking back at it, and to see where it started to where it is now. In the thick of it, I can remember the one guy we had working for us. He was a big man. I'd say in kg, I'm going to roughly guess about 150. Yeah. And the machine today, which is actually our smallest model, looks so big and intimidating to the rest of us that any of us can now, I mean, anybody can run them if they're shown how. But we really thought you had to be as big as he was to run that machine. And, so it was that foreign to us. But when we saw and the customer saw what it could do to clean a floor that had maybe a decade or 2 decades worth of adhesives underneath vinyl tile, as an example, and turn the concrete white to make it a brand new canvas, that was the beginning of what's gotten us to here. The innovation, I would say, kind of sprung from there.
Yeah. Wow. What were some of the challenges along the way?
The tooling, I would say, were the biggest challenges, because at the time, and to this day, maybe some people are still using them, but carborundum tools were really all that was available for those machines. Diamonds were so expensive to make, and the terrazzo industry was so slow to change, that most of their work was being done with carborundum stones, as opposed to the 2-inch stone plugs or the diamond plugs that eventually became more common. And of course, since then, there's so many different styles of diamonds go underneath the machines. But at the time, outfitting the machine was like if you had a fantastic car and you couldn't get tires for it. Without diamonds, a machine can't do anything. So It was probably the limits of that. Also, those machines were made for doing a specific task when it comes to cutting terrazzo. So there really wasn't a lot of variation that the machine type would see each day. Where when you cut concrete, you're aware that it can be soft, it can be hard, it can be in the middle, it can have epoxy, urethane, thin set, any number of things on there which can put varying degrees of stress on a machine that was made to cut one thing. So, the way we figured out what it couldn't do is to break it trying to do something we hadn't tried yet. And we broke a lot of machines, not intentionally, but because there was no precedent set by anyone else as far as, like today, we can draw on a lot of people's experiences when it comes to trying something new. Back then it was should work and see what happens, very American.
Oh, wow. So I can't believe you were breaking those machines. I thought they were unbreakable too. I'd hate to know what you were doing to them.
Well, there was one model. I don't think they make it anymore, but there was one model that was a perfect size. It was like 22 inches by 22 inches. I don't know what it would be in metric, maybe 500-ish. But it was a 10-horse motor, very nice size, especially for doing work in high rises. But if it hit a drain or anything that gave it a little bit of a jar on the tool end, it would bend the shaft up inside the motor. Everything else, all the other models, the nice part is, the couplings, the drive plates, all that stuff is outside the machine. So there was never an issue. You could always fix anything in the field with an impact gun and the parts. But bending a motor shaft, that obviously meant the thing was shut down. So that was probably the reason that machine didn't really catch on for us or anybody else, because you know how these machines get beat up in the field, and if it breaks to the point where it's done until it gets back to the repair shop and gets a new motor and a shaft straightening, it's not a reliable piece of equipment. So that one fell by the wayside. But the other models, they were workhorses and still are.
Yeah. Today, STI makes PrepMaster. That's my understanding. The
Correct.
Your own rotary machine line. How long have you guys been building those for?
Since 2006.
Yeah, okay. Because in my mind, they've been around as long as I can remember. Down under, we had seen a Turco on a couple of times on terrazzo jobs, but we already had the planetary grinders at that time. And, I guess you've got the combination of, the old school terrazzo grinders stuck in their way, still using the carborundum, versus us trying to carve a niche in the market with planetaries already using diamond technology. And so when we saw those, Turcos in action, it was kind of like, yeah, that's not for us. For the size of it, we're expecting it to go a whole lot faster because we're comparing, the size and not the abrasives. And, there's a big difference. So I'd seen those a couple of times down under. And then I remember seeing your machine for the first time and thinking there's a lot of similarities here. How similar are the machines, and what motivated you guys to be building your own machines?
Well, this is another one of those events that my dad had better be able to explain, because there was an arrangement with Toco up in 2006, and that was basically something that started in the early 90s. Like I said, we sold through master distributorship with Blast Track, and we had a good working relationship. I don't know at what point things were no longer good, but at some point, whatever changes were desired by my dad and the machines couldn't be accommodated, or maybe wasn't practical or didn't work with their business model. He decided to make our own. And that's basically how it started. There were quite a few changes. The gearbox itself is where the most changes, I would say, the most sophistication in terms of the time at which the change was made, updated the gearing technology, the lubrication system. It is a sealed gearbox with grease bearings that are encased as opposed to externally maintained. Nothing against the other brand. I can't say anything bad about something that's been around and it's as durable as it is for so long. But it was basically the equivalent of taking a machine that was designed and repeatedly built, I would say from about the 1960s to 1970s, the core of the machine, the gearbox itself, and then taking that concept and changing it over to an equivalent built in 2005 or 6. So again, the lubrication technology, the metallurgy, the precision in the gearing, it's why the machine is a quieter machine, a smoother running machine. How that matters to the contractor, again, it's going to be a matter of Chevy or Ford. But when it comes to the machine itself and the changes, like I said, I don't know what instigated the change, but there was a point at which we started to work with our own machines, and then that relationship ended, of course.
Yeah, it's it's interesting how much when you track back through our industry, that how many of those instances have occurred which have created the opportunity or the need at the time for someone else to start manufacturing something that's more suitable to them, and then that creates a whole knock-on effect in the future, and has helped to form the industry that we're looking at today. Find that I personally find that very interesting, because we have obviously a similar story to you guys as well. Got to a position with the manufacturer and went, it's not going to go where we need it to go. We'll have to make something. And your dad had the smarts and the skills to be able to do that, which I can certainly appreciate. And he then built up a big company from that. So that's really impressive. Very impressive. I only met your dad once, I think. When we met, I think yourself also for the first time in Balma, Germany.
Yeah.
So it was we'd heard about you a lot, because we had, I think we were both going through the same distributor, Niagara Machine at the time. And Gary had told us for probably a year, you've really got to meet this family. You've really got to meet this family. They're fantastic people. And then we finally met you guys at Balma, and it was very brief.
Yeah, I remember passing you in the hall. Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? And that was, we really didn't talk much.
No, but then we did meet up again years later. I was living in the United States. I'd been moved there by Husqvarna, and I think this was probably it was the next time that we actually met face to face. We'd spoken a couple of times on the phone prior to that, because I think we had a similar interest in the industry and where it was at the time. And so the next time I think that we met was at the Concrete Polishing Association in its very, very early years, when we're kind of just getting it together. Tell us a little bit about the Concrete Polishing Association of America.
Well, I don't know the current status of it now. I think they combined with another association since then. I think, if memory serves, probably 2008, 2009. So it was a while ago. So I don't remember, really how it came about or how even I got involved. But I do remember at the time, and I still feel the same way. I'm not saying CPAA would be the way to do it necessarily, but I remember feeling at the time it sure would be nice to have some kind of organization that can get everybody in the same room to at least be trying to push the industry as, let's say, more of a craft than a commodity process. Something that, like terrazzo or stonework or plaster, we don't have the legacy or the lineage of those industries, but it sure would be nice to have this body, let's say, of professionals that says there are minimum standard practices that should be employed for predictable and repeatable results for the sake of protecting the integrity of the industry. That's the way I felt about it then, and I think we still are in dire need of the same. But it was nice to meet guys, because this was before social media. Maybe I was very sheltered. Maybe I was too busy being a contractor in Chicago. But it was cool to meet people from different parts of the country who were already themselves making concrete shiny, and I had never met them before, and yourself included. I mean, you're still the other side of the universe from here. But these days we all feel a little closer together. But back then it felt like a much farther place to know that people were making concrete, reflective the way that, at least to the extent of the end product, the same way that we did it here. But I don't know exactly how it happened with Jim and Brad, but I know Jim was a contractor. I believe Brad was a contractor. And I think that's how it started. And enough of us said, okay, we'll try it.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much how I remember it too. For me, coming from Australia to the US was it was a real eye opener. Obviously, I'd been there a lot of times previously, selling machinery and that sort of stuff in King Concepts days, and then living in the United States. You just see so much potential. You've got a market that's more than 10 times bigger than Australia, and we were really spoilt in Australia with I would say more so from the customer base, that they had a very high expectation of what they wanted to receive, and I guess they also were aware of what something like that would cost. And then coming to America, and it's just like, man, there is just miles and miles and miles of this stuff here, and there's so much potential, but man, is it a price-driven market? It was such a shock for me, at least. I was like, come on, if only you guys knew what this could look like, But it's such a different mentality. The whole economic structure of the country so different to what we have here. So it was a real shock, and it was just very frustrating for me in the first year there, and then to meet all of you guys was just like, oh wow, there is a group of people here in the US that are looking for the same thing as well, and that was really great to get together and form some of the I guess the early framework of the organization, because I guess that's what it takes in any industry, is a small group of people that have a vision for the industry and try to, I guess, take it in that direction for everyone.
Yeah, I think I don't want to badmouth the free market, but I think when it comes to having some kind of distinction be made between a trade organization and an entity trying to make a buck, they really, because there's almost always going to be some conflict of interest. It is a nice idea. I don't know if it's doable in this industry or in that many industries to have an organization that is just there to protect or provide the proper way to do this craft, to do polished concrete as an example, or coatings prep, or whatever it might be, that doesn't have a dog in the fight of my product's the best, mine's the cheapest, mine's the most cutting edge. It's really more about the principles behind it. And it's very easy to see how the industry, not to be negative. I mean, I love capitalism. I mean, it's why, I'm in a nice house and I have lights and heat or air conditioning, but it's to me as a consumer, it's more important if I'm going to be trained. I don't want to be pitched. I want to be trained on how to do something, the fundamentals, as opposed to somebody trying to market something. And to me, that's what CPAA hoped to turn out to be. And I don't know if we ever got there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I left before we got there. I know that much. I am too impatient. I remember being a bit too impatient. I was young. I was on a timeline for how long I was in the US for as well. So I was feeling the pressure of that too. I just wanted it done, dusted, let's move on kind of thing.
Sure.
But when it's a collective, when it's a whole collective, everyone's got to come together on everything and agree on everything. And so that was a learning experience for me too. But we see some of the work of the CPAA actually trickle down into Australia, and I'd say probably more over the last 5 years than ever, where we're seeing actually some of the some of the language getting into the specifications, and that's not something that we've seen here traditionally in Australia because we don't have anything like the CPAA, and if we did, it'd probably have the same letters in it, just would mean something different. Wouldn't be America. But we don't have something like that in Australia. So it's interesting to see it coming out in specifications and just some of the terminology that a lot of Australian contractors are not familiar with. And so it's kind of, it does raise a few questions here sometimes, like where is this coming from? What does it mean? Why don't we have something like this as well? And I always say to them that these are the pros and the cons of having an organization as well. It's like you say, you appreciate capitalism, and that's basically what we're talking about. When you look at other industries, you can also see the pros and the cons of having an organization. When you have a set of established standards, it's like, this is the minimum standard for this project or for this process. And that's what people seek to deliver, the minimum standard. And if you have the alternative where you have a market that's driven towards innovation and basically outclassing their competition by what they're able to provide above and beyond what they can do, then you move the industry forward a bit quicker. So it's kind of the pros and the cons of the two. And I think you probably have to have an organization where if it's starting to trend down rather than up. And
agreed.
I think that comes with different types of competition as well, which is often market affected or economy affected and that sort of stuff. Particularly if you have a downturn in the economy, you've got to ensure that the customer base is still getting at least the minimum standard. When everyone's fighting for work and they have to cut the guts out of price and that sort of stuff, it's comfortable for the consumer to know that they're going to get at least the minimum.
Yeah, I won't name the national retailers that were a part of our history, or are a part of our history when it comes to an industry, but you bring up a good point about, cutting the guts out of it and trying to do the bare minimum, because the bare minimum profit is all that's available, at least from an American standpoint. I don't know about the rest of the world, but here I would say it was an immature response, but it makes sense because the industry at the time and to some extent maybe is still a little bit young. But to think about all the massive amounts of square footage or square meters that were at the time on offer to really a supply side that was nowhere near as adequate as it needed to be to satisfy that demand. I mean, it looked like the golden goose. And so and again, there's no way to say, okay, everybody hold on, let's back up and try this again. So, what we're looking at is we're looking at a lot of orphaned ideas and legacy effects that really weren't a good idea, but it's interesting how they still pop up. And CPAA, I always love their message. I love the purity of it and the concept behind it. But to your point, you get this trickle down and it shows up, and knowing a little bit about the history. Oh, I know where that comes from. I remember talking about this. So, you take the good with the bad, but that's I guess what happens with some time over the target and some age. We're kind of getting up there now to be the ones who tell the stories about what it used to be like.
Hey, when I was younger, that was Brad and Jim.
Exactly. There we are.
I always remember Brad and Jim just being the calm in the room for us. We were younger, had a lot of energy, and we were a little bit hard-headed, I guess. But they were always just so cool, calm, collected. Able to put everything into perspective, and I guess that comes with age and experience, and that's where we're supposed to be sitting now.
That's right.
I look at what STI offers, and polished concrete seems to be a very small part of what you do. I mean, you seem to do about everything to do with concrete and more. Massive amount of experience, Josh. How many people are there in your organization?
9 total.
Nine
total people.
Yeah. And I'm assuming to be able to do what you guys do, they've all got experience in this area too. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Oh no! What I was going to say is we have a very much a culture of family business. Even though now it's my wife and myself, and the rest is feels like family. And I'm very grateful for the group that we have, because even though I'm the so-called subject matter expert when it comes to the practical application of the equipment and the tools, the guys who build the machines, they talk to more contractors on a daily basis than I do. And the reason being is because they have technical questions that have more to do with the machinery and electricity, things that we have no control over, but our guys are able to answer those questions to get them running again, and sending them pictures of parts and how to change them, and to really give customer support that by myself, knowing whatever I might know about running the equipment, each person in our company really excels at what their job is, whether it be, tracking down a shipment, running a business. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. First, someone has to say, yes, I want to buy that. Then it has to be packaged. Then it has to be shipped or drop shipped. Then there's a problem with the package. The cool part about our company being small is that it's very easy to get an answer quickly for a customer. But what I also appreciate about it too is being a group that's been together. We have not hired or fired, or let's say nobody's left, other than in life. We've had the same staff since 2012, and we've had no new people, no changes. So it's like, it's a very small company, and that can also leave, a company like ours a little bit, let's say, prone to losing anybody else. I would say, for sickness or whatever, we can make do with somebody being on the road or on vacation, whatever. But we're very lean, yet still very efficient with being able to answer questions. So yes, I will admit that when it comes to knowing what to do with the equipment and the different things that it can do and products and compatibilities, I know more than anybody. But I'm grateful that I can be doing a demo, or if we were on the same time zone, I could take an hour out of my day and no customers left in the lurch. So there's a lot of people available at our company that can help people out with stuff they need to know in the moment.
You effectively, with that kind of history in the business, from everyone being there that long, you've effectively just got a team of specialists, nothing but. Which is absolutely fantastic for anyone that's doing business with you, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our
Um,
distributor, I mean, working with distributors, same thing, I mean, if they have a problem and, as a distributor, if you've been in that role, you got a customer who needs help, and as the middleman who has to justify, I have to justify the company's existence in the middle. What value do I provide?
hmm.
I'm asked a question that I don't know the answer to, and I got to rely on sales. So there again, it's good to have a good team that's able to take the problem from one side, carry it to the person that has the answer, and then carry it back
Hmm.
efficiently and get an answer that's needed the first time. So
Yeah,
we do pretty good at that.
that makes all the difference to whoever's doing business with you, because as you would know, as with a contracting background, it's not always the machine that's making you the money at the end of the day. It's supposed to be. It's when it breaks down and being able to get it running again, and how soon you can
Right.
do that you're going to be making money, and particularly in a tight margin industry. It's the only way to do it. And if you're buying through someone because they got the machine cheaper for them, but then when it goes down, as it inevitably will, like you say, most of the stuff you get are the things that are out of your control, like power and that type of thing. You need someone who's going to be able to get you back on track like that, because you got to protect your margin.
Right.
And that's the real value of customer service, isn't it? And technical support. That's what makes you money at the end
Yep.
of the day. Your external team. Um, I did want to go back. I noticed that I'd missed a question, and that was in regards to the rotary machines. And I don't know if anyone knows them better than STI, but what I want to know is, I guess you guys have had some. You guys also have some small planetary machines, I believe. Is that right?
No, there was a time where we had tried to work with a German supplier on planetary machines, but it
Yeah.
never went anywhere.
Yeah.
So no, currently we don't have any planetaries.
Is that because you didn't want the planetaries to work? Is that the real reason, Josh?
No, I thought about this question, and I have to say, this is, there's a time and place for everything. I already brought it up
Mhm.
about, how either you drive on the wrong side of the road or we do. I'm not sure who, but if I learned in America, what side of the road to drive on, right? So if
Mm,
I'm here and that's where I learned, and then I moved to Australia, I can learn how to drive on the opposite side. You've lived here, you know how to drive on the opposite side, but it's always going to feel different. It's always going to feel different than what I'm used to, because that's the way I learned. So when it comes to rotary and planetary, I've seen guys do amazing work with planetaries. I can't
mm,
say there's
vice
anything
versa.
wrong with them. And I'm not even naming brands, but everything breaks. It's just a
Mm,
matter of how, when, and why, and then what's it take to fix it. So I won't even say that a rotary is more durable. I know how a rotary works. I know what it feels like. I know how to read it. I know how to listen to it, the speed, the
mm,
weight, the movement, all of it. Um, so it's not that I have an issue with planetary, but if I'm not forced into having to use one, then why would I
mhm.
change from what I know how to use?
Well, fair enough then. Fair enough. Hey, I've used a rotary before on a project. It was one of yours actually, and I was one of the things that surprised me the most, after having run what's probably known as the hardest to run planetary in the market, and we were doing a few layers of epoxy removal in an airport hangar. It was with a client in New Jersey, and they had one of your bigger machines on site, and they said, give it a run. And nervous, look at the size of this thing. And what I was really surprised with was just how smooth, how quiet, and how easy in that application it was to operate from an operator perspective. And knowing what they had a King Concepts machine on site as well, so I was able to compare straight away, from an operator's perspective, just how hard the machine was working. So I had that understanding of how hard it was working with a planetary, and then to run the Prep Master, just like, man, you had some real confidence in that machine, just the strength, the durability, and just how smoothly it was doing that application. So I gained a lot of respect for the rotary machines that day, and could certainly see the in the right environment how they would be advantageous. Can understand, particularly in the American market, why so many people have both. I think
Yeah.
in the
You make a good
Australian
point.
market, you probably couldn't afford to have both. There's just not enough. We don't have the big open, the big open jobs that you guys do up there.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I've noticed that, and it still seems to happen when I'm privy to to these transactions, and people tell me about it. They might start with a rotary for doing prep, and when they want to polish, whether it's because that's what the market is kind of influencing them to do, or it's because that's what's known to be the best way to polish concrete. But I've noticed we have quite a few customers still that have rotaries for prep and planetaries for polishing, and though either machine can do both applications, if that's what makes them happy and makes them successful, and their guys like it, and they know how to do the work correctly, I can't say anything bad about it. If it works and it makes them profitable, I mean, that's a successful customer is a happy customer. So,
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of success, Josh, where do you see STI going from where you guys are today? What does the future look like in the crystal ball?
I'll tell you, I thought about that question, and yesterday I was at a demonstration, and what I realized, somebody asked me the same thing. What do you have new? And I said, we don't have anything new. Same equipment, same everything. And it's not to diminish the sophistication of the equipment that we're offering, but it's more a matter of, and I'm convinced of this more and more that I spend time in the public with new contractors. It's the missing piece of how do we get people to more quickly understand and get comfortable with the equipment and these processes. It's very difficult to teach people who already know how to do something, how to do it differently, or maybe in a way that's the correct way, or at least the most efficient way based on the technology they're planning to use. So where I see STI in the future is doing things like this. Social media was never my plan to participate in social media the way that I am. I got taunted into this. Now I'm not at all regretting it, because I've had my ups and downs with let's say etiquette, online etiquette. I've learned the hard way and the easy way of the ways to behave.
I didn't know there was etiquette.
Well, it's a moving target, but when it comes to getting the word out and trying to position the brand, but still from the perspective of this is the right way to do things to get the best possible result. Again, the most predictable and repeatable result. That's attractive to people who are looking how to be profitable and successful using the products. Whether we sell them or you sell them, it doesn't really matter. If the industry is doing better work as a result, then I feel it's the responsibility of the manufacturers, to the extent that we're capable, to raise our game in education, awareness, just straight up awareness of how to use these products. And so if there's a place where I see us going is more into social media, not to glamorize the brand, but to start to really leverage the medium as a way to serve as an educational channel, as opposed to what it's used for in a lot of other ways, for sensationalizing things. I like it because here you and I are talking right now via technology that we could almost sell that we're in the same room.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
I mean, we're the other side of the world from each other, and we're having a discussion about an industry that to some extent pays our salary. And if it somehow helps somebody else, and at the same time could use the same format to show somebody how to fix something, how to run a machine, use a product, correctly mix it, that's where I think it's more exciting to see new stuff happening in the industry that makes it possible to do that. because that's, to me, the products and the machinery and the chemistry, in my opinion, is better than it's ever been. It's amazing what these things can do these days. But the staff that's employed with using them or to use them, I can't blame them if they don't know how to use them. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just a matter of identifying that the sophistication of the users, installers, be raised to the extent that we're capable using technology that's available to us. We just got to have the will, and then also have the own knowledge of ourselves to be able to use it. So that's where I hope we get better in the next decade.
So anyone who's looking for to run a rotary, well, they know that they can get that with you guys, right? You haven't had to rehire anyone since 2012, so they'll be buying into that knowledge when they're buying that brand, that support, that confidence, which I think is really great.
And I would imagine you guys are probably similar, at least from the standpoint of, we all, in our pocket, we have these phones with cameras on them. And, when a customer calls and has a problem and there's not a video for it, how nice is it to be able to shoot a video of something that's a common question, and then potentially, and in most cases, actually answer the next 10 customers over the next, year who have the same question, but now they just get a link and they're off and running. It's stuff like that, it's having been a contractor on the other end, where we had, I don't know if you guys had Nextel, but we had Nextel. So there wasn't conversation with the walkie-talkies to the rep who we bought the equipment off of when we blew a hose. And we couldn't send a picture of the hose that was blown off. Now, I mean, we can do this for each other, and it's wonderful to be able to say, oh yeah, I know the problem you're having. I don't have to talk about it. They don't want to talk to me anyway. I can send them a video, 3 minutes. They know what to do. They do it, and they're back in business. And so I think any brand that wants to be looked at as reliable and there for support, it's going to behoove them to do that for their customers. It's efficient and it's effective.
And that pretty much brings us back to where we were 15 years ago, coming together, trying to form a group that could help contractors, via a channel of an association, to learn all those fundamentals, have a good understanding, so that you could actually be equipped rather than be tethered to a particular brand or product. You actually had your own understanding and knowledge, and you could make those choices for yourself because you had the knowledge to be able to assess a process or assess a new tool or chemical and determine what's the best thing for your business.
Yeah.
So 15 years later, we still got work to do, Josh.
That's good. That means there's still a purpose. I guess it's not time for retirement yet, so that's a good
thing. So speaking of retirement, Josh, what do you find yourself doing in your spare time, if there is any, in fact, spare time for Josh Jones?
I really enjoy what I do. It's something that I've been doing since, like I said, since I was 16. I wouldn't say that I've more fallen in love with it or if I have a passion for it. It's what I know how to do. I get the freedom to mess about in the shop and shoot video and run equipment and trial different products. Social media is a good place to to some extent get that ego fed a little bit, but also I will say it keeps me honest when I'm learning how to do new stuff. So I take that stuff seriously, and it really does give me, I would say each day gives my life meaning to the extent that I don't really feel like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. I have taken up paint by numbers, which if nobody's done a paint by number, Amazon sells them for like $13 and it takes me about 6 months to do one. They're really kind of cool. So I do those for about a half hour a night. I'm taking piano lessons starting on Friday. Haven't played piano since I was 9.
Oh, wow.
And that's more than enough for me. I mean, that should take me through the spring before I get bored. So that's kind of the way I look at it. We don't have kids, and there's, I'm grateful to have 2 nieces and a nephew, but we don't have kids. So, our lives are very very consistent, and we enjoy just sitting outside looking at the birds with our dogs and drinking coffee and talking about the day. So I'm grateful. I don't have the stress where I need to mountain climb or do any of those other things that I guess other people my age and I could be doing, but I don't do them. So
well, that's that sounds pretty good. I mean, I look at your social media page and I see the testing of the products and the showcasing of the processes and all that sort of stuff, and I can appreciate how much time goes into doing those, knowing that outside of these videos that you're doing that are assisting people, you're also running a business as well. And so I know that takes a lot of energy. So to not be out climbing mountains in your off time, it's probably a good thing, because I know how busy you are every day of the week anyhow. So I can appreciate your appreciation for being able to sit down, relax, and enjoy all the simple things that are happening around you. I think I think it's also an art form that's that a lot of people have lost in this day and age. Just to be able to do that. So I'll take my hat off to you.
Well, thank you. How about you? I see you got a little bit of gray in your beard. What do you do for fun when you're not doing this?
I'm not sure how to take that.
Well, I got it too. I just shaved yesterday, so I still got it up here. So it's coming in.
Yeah, I didn't do the dog thing. Well, I mean, I have one, but I have 5 children. So the eldest is 11. So we've got our hands full. For me, I was an avid bike rider in my teens and early 20s, and as much as we tried to keep our kids away from that sport, I've got 4 of them that are keen about it, and that's what we do during the week and on the weekends predominantly. But
cool.
Come the weekends, I just like to spend time with my family, and we love being outdoors. So we're out climbing mountains,
That's great. That's great. Sounds lovely.
Yeah. So no, it's just those years, you've got to make the best of them. So maybe that's where the grey hair is coming from in my beard.
Maybe might be something in the water.
Well, you'll have to come down here and experience it for yourself, Josh. I think you're due for a holiday down south. Maybe you'll make it over in your winter. We have beautiful weather during your winters.
Yeah, we had a very nice experience. Holly, my wife, came with me when I was over there last. We had a great time over there. It's a very nice. We meet really similar type personalities, it seems, when we travel with the industry, because we were there for work. But that was our experience there too. I mean, the friendliness of the people, and being there for work, but at the same time seeing the harbor. We climbed the bridge with the one guy who we were there with, to do things like that. But we're so-called there for business, but to experience the culture as, let's say, not a real tourist, it's something that it means more than just saying I've seen the Opera House.
Absolutely.
To have some explanation and have that more personalized experience. It's the good part of travel, despite all the necessaries to get there. But it's at some point we'll get back. It's on the list.
Mm-hmm. Oh, terrific. Well, Josh, I want to thank you for joining us today, and being so open with sharing about the business and your personal life too. We know that you're very busy, and we know what you like to do when you're not working. So this wasn't on the list. But so we really appreciate extending your working day for you and joining us on the Works Plus Tech Talk podcast. It's been a real pleasure, mate. And hopefully I'll see you in person again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the invitation. I really enjoyed it. You guys are doing some cool stuff, so thank you.
Thanks again.
This show is proudly supported by Works Plus. Works Plus brings total solutions to all concrete grinding and polishing contractors to make it totally work for their daily operations. We hope you've enjoyed this show. Make sure to tune in each week where we're going to dive deep into all things related to concrete grinding and polishing. We're here to help you so that you can boost your outcomes on the floor.